The global financial system is undergoing one of the most important transformations in modern history, and XRP is sitting right at the center of it. A new confidential update has revealed that 91% of financial institutions worldwide will migrate to ISO 20022 before the November deadline. This is not just a technical upgrade. This is a restructuring of how value moves across borders, how banks communicate, and how digital assets are positioned in the future of money. And XRP, along with other ISO-compliant tokens such as XLM and XDC, is directly integrated into this framework. To truly understand the magnitude of this event, we have to step back and look at the context. For decades, the financial industry has been running on outdated systems like Swift MT messaging, a network created in the 1970s. These rails were not designed for instant global settlement. They are slow, expensive, and prone to errors. Cross-border payments often take days, involve multiple intermediaries, and cost billions annually in inefficiencies. Financial institutions have been desperate for a better system, and ISO 20022 provides that upgrade. It allows for richer data, faster communication, and compatibility with digital assets that can serve as settlement layers. Now, here is why this is monumental for XRP. Ripple has been building relationships with central banks, financial institutions, and regulators for over a decade. Their technology is designed specifically for interoperability and liquidity provision. Unlike Bitcoin, which was created as a peer-to-peer cash alternative, or Ethereum, which evolved into a platform for decentralized applications, XRP was built with one mission in mind: to serve as a bridge currency in the global financial system. Its speed, scalability, and cost efficiency make it uniquely suited for ISO 20022 implementation. The fact that 91% of institutions are migrating early, before the deadline, tells us something important. It tells us that the financial world is preparing faster than most people realize. Public narratives suggest adoption is slow, but behind the scenes, banks and regulators are rushing to align with a new standard. Once November arrives, the majority of the global financial system will already be running on ISO 20022, and the infrastructure for digital assets like XRP to integrate seamlessly will be in place. Now let's connect this to the current market. Today, XRP is trading around $2.80, showing a small recovery while Bitcoin hovers near $110,000 and Ethereum around $4,300. The overall crypto market remains fragile, with corrections across most major tokens, but the underlying fundamentals have never been stronger. The historical trend for September has always been negative for crypto markets, often referred to as the weakest month of the year. But this time may be different. If the Federal Reserve announces a rate cut later this month, the macroeconomic environment could shift dramatically, creating the perfect storm for a new bull cycle led by institutional adoption. Adding even more weight to this narrative is former President Donald Trump, who is scheduled to make a major announcement at 2 p.m. Eastern Time today. While details remain secret, speculation is growing that it could involve crypto regulation or adoption. Trump has been signaling support for digital assets, and his family's exposure to cryptocurrencies has increased significantly. If his announcement ties directly into crypto or financial reform, it could accelerate adoption narratives and add further legitimacy to the industry. Meanwhile, Jim Cramer, a well-known financial commentator, recently declared that September would be weak for markets. Historically, whenever he makes a bearish call, markets often move in the opposite direction. Shortly after his comments, XRP showed signs of recovery, reinforcing the idea that sentiment can flip quickly when fundamentals align with institutional activity. Many investors in the XRP community joke that Cramer's words are almost a contrarian indicator. Institutional momentum is another major theme. Nate Geraci, president of the ETF Store, recently stated that the probability of an XRP spot ETF being approved in the US this year is around 87%, according to prediction markets. He personally believes it is closer to 100%. This is significant because ETF approvals have historically triggered massive inflows of capital, as we saw with Bitcoin earlier this year. Once the US approves an XRP ETF, billions in institutional liquidity could flow directly into XRP, reinforcing its role as an institutional-grade asset. October is shaping up to be one of the most important months in crypto history. Between October 18th and 24th, the SEC will be making decisions on multiple ETF applications, including Grayscale, 21 Shares, Bitwise, CoinShares, Canary Capital, and WisdomTree. These approvals, if granted, could ignite an unprecedented wave of adoption. XRP ETFs are already performing well in Canada's Toronto Stock Exchange, proving there is demand. Once US approval comes, the impact will likely be even greater. Now let's circle back to ISO 20022, because this is the foundation of everything. By November, 91% of global financial institutions will be aligned with this standard. Fedwire in the United States is also migrating, and central banks worldwide are preparing for the same. This is not optional. This is a mandatory upgrade that ensures the global payment system can communicate efficiently and securely. And it just so happens that the digital assets most aligned with ISO 20022 are the very tokens we discuss daily: XRP, XLM, and XDC. The significance of this migration cannot be overstated. It means that the rails for adoption are being built right now. Once regulatory clarity is fully in place, the technical infrastructure is already ready. That is why Ripple has been so focused on securing licenses, building partnerships, and engaging with governments. They know that once ISO 20022 becomes the standard, XRP can be plugged directly into the system. The stage is set, and the timeline is accelerating. At the same time, macroeconomic pressures continue to mount. The US national debt is climbing. France is facing an explosion of debt at over $3.4 trillion, and major economies are struggling with inflation. In times of crisis, assets that provide liquidity and efficiency gain value. This is why digital assets like XRP, designed to solve trillion-dollar inefficiencies in payments, are becoming indispensable. Another critical point to consider is tokenization. Ripple has been vocal about its work on central bank digital currencies and real-world asset tokenization. Billions of dollars in tokenized assets will require a settlement layer, and XRP is already being positioned as that bridge. Ripple is working on 5 different CBDC pilot programs with central banks and governments. This means that when ISO 20022 fully takes effect, the rails will not only support cross-border payments, but also tokenized assets, digital identities, and stablecoins, all of which require liquidity solutions. The truth is, the price of XRP today does not reflect the fundamentals. At $2.80, it remains massively undervalued compared to its potential utility. If just 1% of SWIFT's global transaction volume were to be processed through XRP, analysts project a minimum valuation of $100 per token. That may sound ambitious, but given the scale of what's happening, the migration of nearly every bank in the world to ISO 20022, the potential approval of US ETFs, and the adoption of CBDCs, the numbers begin to look realistic. We also need to highlight how adoption is often invisible to the public until it is complete. Banks do not advertise every partnership or integration. Much of the progress happens behind closed doors, with pilot programs and testing quietly laying the groundwork. By the time announcements are made, the systems are already functional. That is why this 91% migration figure is so significant. It confirms that banks are preparing silently in advance for a global financial reset. In conclusion, the next 3 months are set to define the future of XRP and the global financial system. September brings the potential for a Fed rate cut. October brings the ETF decision windows, and November brings the ISO 20022 migration deadline. Each of these on its own would be significant. Together, they represent a historic convergence of macroeconomic, regulatory, and technological shifts. XRP is not just another cryptocurrency. It is the infrastructure for the new financial system. The migration of 91% of institutions